What up, Danny? Hey, everybody.
What's up, my man? Good to see you, Ryan. Welcome to this live stream series of events.
Dude, people love you. Look at these comments.
Oh, man, I hope they do. I hope they
How's
do.
it feel to be loved, dude? It's like the best thing in it.
Feels great. Feels great. Well, apparently, maybe there are haters in disguise. You never know. You never know with
You know
some
how I
people.
feel about haters? I feel like haters are the people who need the most love. And it's just one big projection of what's going on in their own thoughts, right? I mean, that's all it is.
We're just starting the conversation and already dropping jewels for the people, my man.
I mean, it's just life, right? I mean, I've been trying, that's something I've been working on lately, is compassion. Because, it's like I've been, uh, you get shit from people and then you want to do something, you want some power, then you realize the only power you really have is trying to understand why they would do that, why they would project that type of stuff. And compassion is it, man. You feel sorry for them, and if you can do something for them, you can.
Yeah, for real, man. And it's funny you mentioned it. When I was in therapy, one of the key values for me at least was compassion, actually. And I also learned that compassion goes, it's a two-way street, goes for people, but also goes for oneself. So it's funny that you just mentioned that, and I'll start the conversation. I'm already loving it, man.
Self compassion's hard too. Self compassion. Sorry, I don't know if you have a structure. I just like talking, man. I just start
Ah,
going.
don't worry, man.
Self,
I do have I do have a structure because sometimes I don't know the type of conversation that's gonna come with people, especially if we haven't interacted before. So feel free, man. Just I just wanted to hear from you, really.
yeah. Well, Oh, well, currently, I'll just give you a little. I just want to talk to you. Currently, I'm in Miami right now, so I live in Chicago. Chicago is my home. And I heard you speak in Spanish when you started. So I mean, I grew up in Chicago. There's a diaspora of the Latin world, right? So you get a little of everything. But Miami is. I didn't know much about Miami. It's like the New York City of the Latin world in USA, so to speak. So I'm starting to try to fine tune my ear to all the different dialects in Spanish. Like you can hear, oh, this person must be from a little Costa Rican. Well, that's Portuguese. Like that's not even Spanish. Like my ear is starting to get a little better after 2 months. So I've been here just ducking out, man. It's been good. A part of I think what I've been doing here is just uh, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I wish I could say something that sounds good and smart, but I feel like I'm just going through a midlife crisis right now. And I'm just anchoring myself in kind of what these topics are today, and just bodybuilding. It's something I'm good at. I get positive reinforcement from it. It's something that I can make progress on. And really, it's just my spirituality. Christianity, it's a practice I've taken up. I think any spiritual practice is good, but a particular one that hits close to home has been Christianity for me. So I just been trying to deepen my practice, trying to study, and not in like a churchy type of way, but just sometimes you read scripture and you're like, you can feel lost, right? Or sometimes you can even read philosophy and you can feel lost, any of it. But I'm just trying to literally study it, line by line. Like it's like a rap song, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll hear one line, you gotta go back here, go back here, go back. You think, well, or it's like guitar, like you hear a lick, you gotta just play that lick all day, right? Just play that one lick all day, just trying to get that lick down. So that's what I've been doing, man. Just slowing down and trying not to give a fuck, but still have compassion at the same time. Like the dualism. So
Man, speaking of guitars, man, actually, the golf top that sometimes I upload to my stories is it's right here. Actually, it's so sweet, man. I know. You
I
should.
brought I only bought so I originally was supposed to be down here for 3 weeks, and I brought I brought my
Oh, that's
Telecaster,
a nice looking telly.
but my hands have been wanting to get on a Les Paul, dude. Like I just miss the smell of it, the feel of it. I miss it. So
Yeah, for real, the mahogany has some sort of smell and the chunkiness of the neck. It's pretty cool, man. And
something
speaking
about it.
of, yeah, for real. And actually, the conversation that you had with several people, the last one I saw from you was with the Steve Hall podcast, the Revive Stronger podcast. And I also been following your content in YouTube for a while now, your blogs and all this type of stuff. And your content actually resonated quite deeply within me. Because for starters, the first thing I wanted to kind of do in life was either music or philosophy, but either way, I got caught up in fitness. So the way that you put the two and two together, I think it's a breath of fresh air. And I also, it can deepen our practice of both bodybuilding and whatever spiritual practice we're into it. Not necessarily a religion or a faith component. We put it into, I don't know, like religious stuff, you know? It's just
Yeah.
the practice of being present, of actually connecting. Why is bodybuilding important to oneself? And that for me at least, it started like an outsider looking in at bodybuilding. Ah, these people are so self-involved, you know, they only care about their appearance and all that stuff. And maybe that's fine, but when you actually yourself for contest, when you experience hunger, when you experience pain, and suddenly it becomes like a way of living and gives you meaning, man, turns into a whole other thing. And that's what I wanted to hear about your experience and what makes bodybuilding for you a spiritual and philosophical practice. Because man, what you drop in the Revive Stronger podcast, it's here, it's right here, man. I have to tell you.
Well, I think the thing. Well, okay, I can't say this is universal for everyone, but I think for me, what kind of makes bodybuilding a spiritual practice is its requirement to be good at it, so to say. Like, I think if you want to be a good bodybuilder, like you start off and then like it's new and you see a lot of new people lifting weights and they're doing everything right. They're not incorrect, but they have no idea how much more will be required of you to get to the next level. I feel like for me in bodybuilding, and then we both coach, so this is the progression of coaching. You start off and then you dose the whatever is minimally effective for a person in terms of, and then they start running into some issues, and they're like, I don't understand. I went on vacation. How can I get on my weight? But and they start seeing that the method will ask all of you eventually, right? If you really want to be good at it, and this is not just bodybuilding. This is any sport, right? Like or any real, um, true passion or true endeavor. Not everything is like this, right? I think some people experience this, like let's say military or parents, musicians experience this. Like there are very few passions in life where it requires your dreams at night. It requires how you sleep, right? It requires what you think about in your sleep. I had a dream last night. This is a real dream. I had a dream last night that I was doing a seminar with Lane Norton, and it was like 12 guys there. And this is real. This is how I started. I really used to do seminars with Lane back in the day. But dude, it just sort of reminds me of like, um, man, like like I'm trying to think of the word. It reminds me of a religion, right? It's like you see a lot of people and they train and they're not getting the results they want, and it's not like anything else. It's not like you can go get a degree or you can read another book or you can. And I think this is going on a lot in the scientific community. People are trying to deepen their sort of intellect, but it doesn't require any of that, right? It requires more of your soul, so to speak. It requires more of you sort of giving up more of yourself, and that's what is a cool term, sacrifice, I guess you can call it like that. But if you're a bodybuilder, if in your heart you feel like I identify with this, if you were like me growing up, seeing Ultimate Warrior looking crazy and The Rock looking crazy, and that's always what you felt like you are, um, it's gonna ask everything of you, right? I've never done anything as hard as bodybuilding. I wish things were hard. I wish I could say I've done some things that are harder, but it's just not. It's just not. It's insanely hard. It's insanely hard. So the way I sort of look at it, man, it's like you have to let go of this concept of I did this, I checked this off the box, I did this, this is my volume, this is my training. You have to take that upon for your sort of life if you want to get as good as you want to be, at least. Unless you keep it as sort of a hobby. So in that, you should get some good fruit from that. It should become a spiritual experience, right? If you're going to give a life up to something, where's the fruit? Where's the harvest? What are we getting from this, right? So I think naturally, like you said, you go in and then you start learning these life lessons. It's just fucking crazy. Man. It changes you. I mean, dude, I started just lifting. I'm still here, 20 years. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm still here talking about lifting weights. It wasn't what I was anticipating, but yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's my answer. It's just all in is a spiritual experience. It's not a thing you do. It's not a fun type thing you do temporarily. But I've made a call on my life, and here's what I'm going to do with my life, and that's serious. That's huge. To answer a calling, it's a pretty big deal. So that's how I always looked at bodybuilding. So
It, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. And you use the word warrior. here and there. And actually, one of the notes I had, it's about, well, two concepts, the ikigai for the Japanese people, and also the dokodo, the famous writing by Miyamoto Musashi. I think it's, I don't recall the exact number of principles, but it's something I actually named my cycle of training Dokodo because it's a way of training. It's the part of loneliness, not in loneliness as getting extracted from the world and saying I don't want to see anybody, but in the way that you mentioned, that bodybuilding, it's a journey to oneself. It can be inherited.
Mhm.
It can be, well, you can fake the word, you know. You
Yeah.
have to be there. You have to dream about it. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to take everything into account. For some people, I think it can be a little selfish, but I think it's a good way of being selfish, because perhaps the way we look at bodybuilding, and I think that's a big challenge for us practitioners of the sport, is to actually extract all these lessons, all these things that we can learn and do in bodybuilding to the everyday life component and be, well, at least strive to be a better person.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think there's two things you said there. One is it's a it's a it's a it's a deepening practice of insight and going inside oneself. And I think when I first got into bodybuilding, I saw a lot of nasty shit. You know, I think when we see the outsides of bodybuilding, I think the culture is pretty stinky, right? Selfishness, ego, a lot of egoism, a lot of a lot of not warmness. You know, I think the current generation is trying to change that narrative a lot now. But back in the day, it was all guys who were super heavies when I started, right? They were just like really not welcoming, really not warm. It was a very selfish, the classic bodybuilding culture. And so I think bodybuilding reminds me of anything else of a journey inside, right? You can go and say, I want to be a Buddhist. And then you can say, all right, well, I'm going to give up all my possessions. And in that search of giving all your possessions, you now egotistically identify as a person who, I don't have possessions, I'm now better than you, right? So
Yeah.
I think a strange thing about bodybuilding is that it's like a spiritual practice in that uh, if you, like Jesus says, right, if you go on the streets and you pray in the streets and you show off in front of everyone, and then when you give, you say, "Look at me, I gave that homeless guy $5," right? Then it's like you'll get your reward here and there. You get your sort of egotistical reward. But I think bodybuilding has like another trap door if you just keep quiet about it, right? So it's not like isolating, and like you said, it's not trying to get yourself away from the world. But I think it's more so like the rewards are giving in secret in this universe, right? It's kind of like that Paul Coelho quote from Alchemist. Like if you really want something bad enough, the universe will conspire to sort of make it happen to you, right? Christians always say, "Give God time to make it work for you," and that's sort of what bodybuilding is like. It's like though you're after simple thing, you receive 100 times in what you chase if you're willing to drop that idea of the superficial sort of identity and really do the method. And I think there are so, if I had to say that of all the bodybuilders I've met in my life, the percentage of people that actually are bodybuilders, I mean pro bodybuilders, those are probably the only people I've ever met that are really and truly doing it. Everyone else, I would say they're like still in training to do it, or just kind of doing it sort of like a hobby thing. Pro bodybuilders are the only people that I've ever met that are like, you'll die on your cross for this, right? And how much can we say that same crossover in research? Right? How many researchers genuinely, really, and truly are like just about research and never hear of these people, right? Like, and or how many of them kind of say, I'm a researcher, I'm a PhD, therefore I'm better than you, right? You can sort of walk two paths always, I think, in any all-in endeavor. You can say, I'm all in, I'm a Buddhist, so I have no possessions, I'm better than you, and that's where you'll stay. Or you can say, I'm all in, I'm just going to stay quiet and just receive every day. In Christianity, they call this daily bread, right? There's something you can learn every day. Every day, there's something you can learn about yourself. And I think that's what our journey is, right? Is that if we can all find something, it doesn't matter if you're an artist or a guitar player or a bodybuilder, it doesn't matter. The path is whatever. You just have to pick a true method to sort of unfold this person of who you are and learn that. And bodybuilding is a great tool, if that's your calling, to learn who you are. I mean, there's all types of ways of learning who you are. You go to a therapist, and they can tell you some things about yourself, but you don't really know much. You might know about your habits and some of your past and histories, but you don't know who you are. You haven't proven anything to yourself. You don't know who you are, and that's what bodybuilding does. It can really pull that thing out of you and
Yeah.
say, oh, this is who I am truly. And I think that deep insight is what we're after, not just a superficial, I'm better than you because I don't eat street food, or I'm better than you because I wear a bigger hat than you. Like, it's like it can get quite silly quite quick, but it's strange, right? Strange thing.
It's strange but beautiful thing because at least for me, the most I would say enlightening part of my own practice of bodybuilding. Well, I'm in the pursuit of hopefully one day becoming a pro and well get better at it, basically. But if it doesn't happen, well, at least I'm doing
I
everything it's in my hand, in
Actually,
my
well, let me
control.
stand corrected. I think a pro bodybuilder doesn't necessarily need to be qualified by a outside organization, right? I think a pro
Sure.
bodybuilder to me is someone who does it like a professional nurse, right? Do you do it all the fucking time? That's what I mean, right? It doesn't matter if you have a card, or that doesn't matter. Are you are you living the sort of obsession, right? It's like it's good to have passion. It's good to have something. It's hard because we're sparse and we're few. But if a lawyer wants to go out and be a fucking lawyer, they'll let the lawyer work 80 hours, and they'll have communities of lawyers, and they'll have groups and meetings and events for lawyers. And we're, as Bollywood's not that, excuse me, not that organized yet. We have competitions in which we have some organization, but that's really it. That's really it. So it's mostly a solo walking journey, and in that solo walking journey, you can get some crazy ideas. You get some crazy ideas alone. So I think if you do it all the time and live it, you're a pro. What else are you? You don't need someone to tell you whether you're a pro or not. So, who cares?
Yeah, for real. It does resonate. And for me, the most enlightening bit of all this practice has been when I felt the most hunger, when I felt the most tired, and I need to be a human, you know. I need to hopefully not be an asshole to the people next to me because it's my own path and they're in their own path, and I have to be respectful of their time, of their efforts, and respectful also of mine.
What did you
So.
so tell me about your competition history. Have you competed? Have you just dieted? Have you just prepped? So how
I
low how low have you flown your plane? I guess that's what I want.
Yeah, I just did my first competition in last October. I competed in two categories. I got the first place in both. I got so close to getting the pro card, so
So you've done
it
one
was a cool.
so far.
Yeah, for real. And I'm hoping to compete this year too. And that gave me that kind of. I've been bodybuilding for more than a decade, man, and I just competed. But this particular experience just kind
Hit
of
different.
ignite something in my experience. I kind of fell in love with what it actually means to to compete, to challenge yourself, and challenging yourself not in the sense of I want to be better than the rest. Not really, just I want to prove, well, not proof, I don't know the word exactly, but I want to live this
What's
way
in there? What is in there?
because
What can I do? What can I pull off? How
yeah,
can what
exactly,
am I
man.
made of? What am I what's and okay, so like I think one thing that I like in bodybuilding too, especially in religion, is that in religion, you read about these old prophets and stuff, and they all had to withstand these crazy tests, right? And all of faith and belief in yourself it has to be tested. You don't really believe until the storm comes. And bodybuilding is like that. When the hunger hits, right? When the doubt hits, when people don't, right? It's like a test. It's like a test of your human everything, your toughness, your grit. You're trying to figure out, when you play those video games like football games or basketball games. They say like shooting skills and then like passing skill. Like that's what I think bodybuilding is. I'm trying to figure out who I am. I'm trying to figure out to what degree that I am. But I also think, like I'm sort of on the other side of the journey, right? I had these same questions in bodybuilding, and I got a lot of them answered. And maybe I'll compete again one day. Maybe I won't. But I find that those questions don't stop the being asked, right? Like, so as a young man, I think that's what bodybuilding really does to a young person. It like really helps. It really wants you to say like, what are my limits, right? How strong was I made? How weak am I made? What are my weak spots? I find that questioning doesn't stop, but it's asked of you in new venues. Could be parenting, could be marriage, could be I don't know, business, could be anything, right? So I find that bodybuilding for most people is like the first like explosion. It's like a creative explosion. It's a explosion of work. I think in society, we can get very boxed. work this many hours, have this balance. And bodybuilding is the first thing that says open and just go as hard as you can. And I think that's an attractive feeling for a certain type of person who has a certain type of calling. And I love it, and I loved it. So I'm kind of where you're at now, and I'm similar to you. I'm trying to figure out if I can do this bodybuilding thing and have a life, right? Because I've done it with no life. I've done
Yeah.
it. I mean, I won all those shows. I did everything, but I've done it with no relationships, no strong foundation. I've done it, but now I'm trying to see in this phase, can I be just as good, if not close as good, and still have a life, still have healthy relationships, still have appointments with social friends, right? Because it's very easy for a bodybuilder to go and prove themselves and then take some shortcuts. It's like Jesus always said, it's like the house built on a solid foundation or the house built on sand. It's like I found in early runs of bodybuilding, to prove yourself, you can do crazy shit. Like you can be like, well, I don't give a fuck about that. I don't give a fuck about that. I don't care about that, right? And you start cutting out all these things to sort of make a clear path for the bodybuilding, right? If they're socializing and eating, you kind of just find yourself like, I'm just not going, right? You just find yourself sort of like trying to get away from those things because it's too difficult. I think it's too difficult to live that bodybuilding lifestyle and be integrated, right? And in that separation, you can create some identity, some ego, right? So you can, I think, build an excuse at times and say, well, I don't do that because I'm better. Well, I don't do that because I can't. Well, I don't do that. But you're a human being, and you need to eventually, right? So if you really want to bodybuild for life, I think ultimately the question becomes, can I do this and sustain? Can I do this and have people around me who love me? Can I do this and still make appointments and things like that? So the phase I'm certainly kind of in right now with my bodybuilding, I don't know. Let's give it a name. I call it my phase of being brave and having courage, right? Because I think it's easy to bodybuild and be a little bit of a coward in your philosophy is keeping yourself strong but avoiding the world, so to speak. And this gospel that I read about this dude Jesus, he had a completely unique idea. Or let's say the Buddha, any one of them, Lao Tzu, any one of them, right? Any one of these special people who've come through time, they've had a completely backwards, upside down idea, and they put it in society. They weren't afraid to do it in the world, right? They didn't just go up to the mountaintop, chant from the right. They did it. They were weird. They were odd. They were outsiders, and they did it in the world. So that's current. That's my current challenge right now that I'm on. Is that can I be a badass bodybuilder? Bang! I mean, just have really right, and live a life and live a life, right? Not feel obscure. Not avoid the challenge of ordering at restaurants. I just want to do it and have it. So, and I've come to this point because I've been in the world. I'm working. I have a coach and everything like that. And I don't like when I'm coaching and business is good and content is good, but I don't feel like a bodybuilder. Only reason I'm doing this video, only reason I'm doing any of this is because I'm a bodybuilder, right? It's like I don't care about any of this. I want to bodybuild. That's what I want to do. More like that's how I got into this whole thing. And I found that I was getting away from it. And so I want to really, I've come back to my bodybuilding and I want to come back to my life, but I have to find a balance between the two. In bodybuilding, oftentimes warrants no balance, and that's sort of what the life is. And that's fine, but I think I'm just trying to get better at, having a better philosophy about the bodybuilding where I don't avoid the world at large to keep the bodybuilding pure, right? Because it feels good to stack 4 clean weeks in a row uninterrupted. But I'm getting older, like I just had one of my close friends. He just passed away yesterday. He just committed suicide, right? And then 2 weeks ago, some stuff with my dad, and then my girl's dad. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, oh, life is just going to keep hammering on you, right? And I can take two paths, which is the egotistic path of the bodybuilder, shut it out, and say I'm just fucking strong bodybuilder and do my fucking bodybuilder stint until I fade off and no one hears of me ever again. Or I can open myself to the world and use my bodybuilding differently, right? So as opposed to using it, I think then as a tool, like of proving to myself how strong I am, go prove to yourself, go prove how strong you are, go figure it out. And once you figure that out, utilize that to actually be strong then, right? When these situations come, when the storms do come, still show up for your training because that keeps you regular, right? When things get hard, when you're sick and all those things, keep bodybuilding. So I think in these formative years, find out what you're made of, and then use it for the rest of your life. Don't just use it for stage or a competition. Those people don't deserve your best. You deserve your best. No organization deserves the best of you. You deserve the best of you. So that's kind of how I moved it now, right? And all of this is a sort of the spiritual practice coming to benefit my life, right? Ultimately, it should come back to me. It should come back to us. So I think that's the thing, is to not get lost in the translation of bodybuilding and to actually let it stick, right? Let it be like, put it like the bodybuilding, the stuff you learn, you should be like a necklace around your neck. You should never let it leave you. And so, yeah, you can become easily stubborn and have, sort of push the world away and not interact, but you have a clean, tight, sterile bodybuilding. Or you can get down and dirty, you get up on that cross and bleed out and say, I'm a bodybuilder, I don't give a fuck what you guys do to me. It's kind of that philosophy of going for it anyway. So that's kind of where I'm at now. That's kind of where the philosophy in bodybuilding has evolved, and it's been, what, almost 20 years now, 17 years, 18 years of bodybuilding now. So,
Yeah, it's
you
crazy,
know,
man. I'm really sorry to hear about your friend, man. And
it's very sad. The strange thing about it was, like, so I have a group of friends that we've all been like best friends since like third grade. Uh, we lost him years ago though, right? Like, stopped coming out. It's just been like a decade, just stopped coming out, stopped doing all those things. Um, and it's just strange, it's like it makes you realize, like, okay, like, I was just Bible. I never thought to, you know what I mean? Like, you start realizing more about the world. It's like, okay, I can't let this bodybuilding be an excuse to never reach out. I can't let this body, right? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to really balance the balance this thing here and have it make some sense here. So yeah, thank you for that. It's terribly sad. But life's life's full of sad shit, right? You're gonna you know what I mean? You might go blind or deaf one day. It just keeps getting more sad. So right now you're in these youthful years where it's like a test, it's like you're testing yourself and figure out who you are and use that strength till you expire. That's the whole point of this bodybuilding, is to express it while you're young and strong, and then as we get older in age, keep going. Keep use it. Remember who you once were. You're gonna fade and get weaker, sure, but yeah, you're on a good part of your journey right now, Danny.
man, for real, I think that's one of the most beautiful lessons that I've learned from bodybuilding, being that I've experienced both depression and anxiety. And for me, the talk about mental health, about all these issues is always super important. Greatly appreciated that you mentioned it. Because yeah, for me, bodybuilding, training, the day-to-day basis was what kept me like an anchor, you know. Obviously, you get I had the privilege of getting access to a therapist, so I did that for about a year straight. It went well, but you know, training, the way the sacrifice becomes the way of living, and to commit yourself to being uncomfortable on a daily
Exactly.
basis with whatever it is that you do, it kind of changes your perspective. And paradoxically, if you will, it kind of brings more satisfaction in a way, which is ironic. And also, I find it really surprising that there are so many similarities between religion and the story of Jesus, the story of Buddha, and whatever, that they experience pain, they experience hunger, they've experienced all the bad
Every
shit that can happen to a human,
everything.
and they come back, you know. And bodybuilding, it's pretty similar when you think about it. You experience pain, you experience hunger, you experience all these things, because you want to be exposed to that. And some people take it as a way of, like you mentioned, of saying I'm better than the rest. But when you look at it through a different lens, that it's actually something that teaches you about what's important to you, that it's not just bodybuilding, that you can still reach out for a friend, for a family, or whatever it is in the context of each individual. That's, to me, been at least since October to till now. And when I watched your episode with Steve, it's been mind blowing, man. And I
Right.
found a new love that I didn't know I have for bodybuilding, in a way that I haven't been able to put into words before, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. I'm honestly, that's kind of the way I see it. It's really like, um, it's like fishing. It's like you throw that rod in there, and you put yourself up against hunger and timelines and weeks. And then I think also bodybuilding, it's like, I think it's holy in some way because it's work, right? Righteousness is work, goodness is work. Buddha would say, "Do your good work." Jesus would say, "Do your right." Right? These, like, work is it's like a holy thing. Work is good, right? For a human to be having utility is a good thing. And I think bodybuilding is, if you really look at the word, it's like building your body. You have to have blueprints. You have to be like an architect. You have to think, what am I doing tomorrow, right? What materials are we going to use, right? We aminos and all these things. So though we speak in science and kinesiology and nutrition, though we use those terms, we're just using basically the truth, right? The truth is that I'm a biological machine. That's true, and I'm building a true thing. Like there's no sort of a lie or falseness in bodybuilding too. I think that's the other thing. Like it's a true method. And if I had to say what religion is, I think religion is a path to the truth. Right? There are many religions. There have been many religions that are no longer around anymore, and every one is just an attempt to get to the truth. I believe that us human beings, we can never know truth. We can't, we're not. That's just not how we're made. We're not like truth-bearing vessels. You know what I mean? Like the universe is the only truth-bearing vessel, right? I'm a piece of it. There's no way I can know the whole thing. And so for us, I think that's what the arts are. That's what math is. That's what science is. It's our attempt to. It's like if you had a little kid, your little kid would do what you do. Your kid would copy you. And if this universe is like a true universe, let's say it's definitely not a false universe, right? I try to be like it. I try to imitate it. And bodybuilding is an art form. It's a work form that makes me be more in line like it, right? Which was basically like, Buddha's whole message. So to be in line with the way, or Jesus' whole message, be in line with God. So we're just basically like trying to fit in with our master, whatever you want to call this. I don't know. You pick whatever word you want. Whatever word doesn't trigger you, I could care less. Pick it. But true north is the direction that we're all trying to feel and get to. And bodybuilding is one of a gajillion thousands of ways. I just think for us, it just hits us backhanded because the thing that got it, that kind of lured us in, was like shiny things, muscles, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? It kind of
Yeah.
lured you into that stuff, and then you realize like, oh well, that was the initial reward I got. Right? It's like dating. You're like, oh, this person's so beautiful. Blah blah blah. They make me laugh, and then you start getting in there. You're like, oh, she reminds me of my dad. It's like, right? It's so much on a subconscious level. There's always a truer layer there, and I feel like that's what bodybuilding exposes. So it's really a path you can get in, and if you want to, you can pick the lesser path, the beaten path of I'm in. All right, same thing with religion. Right? You see a lot of people say, I'm religious now. I'm better than you. I'm holier than you now. Now I'm gonna talk to you fucking crazy in scripture. It's the fucking craziest thing ever, in my opinion. Right? They're gonna talk to you in a language that you don't understand and bombard you, right? Or no, the same way if I were a bodybuilder and I went to a person in the street and I said, "Here's the truth, right? Here's how you get better." Everyone knows that, if biggest correlator to disease, is like and death is like how much muscle mass do you have? People with muscle mass are generally not on the hospital bed, right? You have to wither first, lose your muscle. Muscle is always an indicator of health of some sorts. At least I'm speaking in terms of natural building muscle naturally and bone density and such. And so I can't just go out and preach that crazy to people because it's a truth I know, right? It's up for everyone to find their own truth. Some people might find their truth on a sailboat. Some people might find their truth, in bird watching. I don't know. It's all true. It's all good. Any method is good as long as you can go all in on it. So this one is our own. Thank God we got our own. And I would say don't be afraid of the deeper lessons that it has for us, right? It's so easy I was just at the pool and, I just be the big guy strutting at the pool. And if that's all I want, sure, I can have that, or if all you want is a pro card or a trophy, then sure, it can stop there. But there's something 1,000 times greater, if you just sit and let it and receive and let it teach you and be frustrated daily. Frustration is a teacher, feel hungry daily. These are good things, right? To suffer is a good thing. To suffer is to be chastised means you're loved by the universe. It's trying to show you some chaos to get you moving. So it's a good thing, man. So I had a question for you. What was your experience with therapy, and if you feel comfortable, what made you think, shit, let me give this a shot?
Yeah, for real, man. And just before answering, well, I feel honored that you have a question for me. I love it, man. Thanks for that. I just wanted to mention briefly my man. I don't know if you're familiar with him, with Jared Maynard from Canada. He got a super rare disease, autoimmune disease. He almost died in the ICU, but because he had enough muscle to
Wow.
go along with all the process. Yeah, he's on Instagram, and we had a live stream
Wow.
conversation just like this one about all his experience and stuff. And the title of that one was "Strength Saved Lives," literally. So yeah, I found so much beauty within not just bodybuilding, but with training, with being a better person that you are currently right now through training, through effort, to all these things that can someday, you never know, perhaps save your life. So I
Yeah.
wanted to give a big shout out to him.
Shout out to
And yeah, man, about my experience with therapy. Well, when you're constantly with yourself, you kind of start noticing things that maybe even training is not as fulfilling as it once was. Maybe neither guitar playing or whatever it is that you found in some dark corners of the world. Now that doesn't help you anymore to feel anything, not just good or bad, just anything. Well, you start getting suspicious. You start getting these intrusive thoughts that are not really helpful in anything. All this constant influx of thoughts. And I actually reached out to get some help because I like to be open about it. I'm a professor. I teach a lot of classes, and I like to speak about these things even just as a reminder of people that if they need help, it's okay to ask for it. It's okay to know you're vulnerable because that vulnerability, at least for me, is what makes us strong. And my experience was not like many people think about therapy. Like it's just you sitting in a couch and speaking ill about the world and everything. Now I had a shit ton of homework every day. I had to do, first of all, what is important for you? Where does your family come from? Comes in your whole experience as a human being, your friends, your work, your fitness, everything, and what needs more of your attention right now. Okay, you identified it's perhaps your family, it's perhaps this. Even if you feel like shit, Daniel, that's what they said to me, you're gonna have to do this to connect with that part of yourself that it's important to you. Doesn't matter if you're feeling okay or not. So it was a little rough, but I think it's what I needed in that moment.
like bodybuilding.
Like bodybuilding, exactly, man. That's what I'm
Work
connecting
is
all the
good for us.
dots.
Work is work.
Yeah,
Work is good for us.
of course, man, because it's not about just saying I'm feeling sad. It's more about elaborating more on top of that and saying I'm gonna train even if I'm feeling like shit,
Yeah.
because this thing is important to me, not because of a pro card, of a first place, of a bigger bicep, because it allows me to live a better quality of life. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that
No,
was the whole of experience. It was hard, man, because on top of work, on top of everything, I had to do all these daily tasks in my therapy. But man, I'm so grateful to have the privilege of getting access to therapy because I
that's all.
know a lot of people don't have.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then the whole point is to be treated and live your life. So yeah.
Yeah, straight up, man. And also, I think it blows my mind sometimes that when I connect the dots about body, of course, it's my bias. When I connect the dots with science and philosophy, one in particular that I wanted to share with you is the concept of Wu Wei. I don't know if you're familiar with
I'm
it.
familiar with.
It's
Wait, is that like a yin yang type thing or no?
Yeah, it's something along those lines. It's like doing without trying, something like that could be
You know what I
translated.
call it? All right,
But
all right. Here's what I call it. And I didn't mean to jump, but I'm just so excited about this topic because this is something I'm currently practicing. All right. So in Christianity, they call this righteousness, doing the right good. In Hinduism, they call it you can call it dharma, right? Walking the right path, the proper path. Everyone's got some word for it, the correctness, right? I call it not giving a fuck righteously, right? It's like how can I not give a fuck completely, like just because I actually don't genuinely in my core, I actually don't give a shit, right? And I think don't giving a shit is good, but it helps you sort of let go. It helps you just say, it just sort of helps you release, and now you're before the universe. But the only issue with not giving a fuck is that if you try to apply that as a blanket to everything, well, now you're unrighteous. Now you're not in Dharma, right? Now things are happening, and you don't give a fuck. Now you don't have compassion. Now you're not. Now you're too non-caring. I've set my default to I just don't care about anything. unless it seems unrighteous, unless it seems not dharma, unless it seems not in line with the way of the universe, then I must. It's my duty to sort of care, to sort of react, and so the word that I guess is it's common present word for that is presence or awareness or attention, right? It's just what would happen if my consciousness weren't me, right? Like when I go to sleep, I check out, I don't know where I go, but I'm still somewhat there. I'm still observing my dreams. I'm still observing my day-to-day thoughts, but I'm the observer, right? I'm basically just watching the guy go, you know. So I've been huge on that practice lately. It's been like a massive practice for me lately, and it's brought me freedom. Would be the best word. That'd be probably the best word I come up for it. But okay, so you gotta tell me more about Wu Wei. I'm sorry, man. I'm very
Now,
excited about
man, I get excited too, and I just get a light in my head. The Wu Wei, it's really similar to what you mentioned, because at least in the context of training, the day-to-day training and progressive overload, Wu Wei, the way of doing without doing, it's, let's say, I used to stress out a shit ton about progressing, about getting more reps, all this kind of stuff that gym rats get into. But Wu Wei, it's like doing like planting a tree. Well, you do what you have to. You put the seed, you put the soil, you put the water, and that's it. That's the end of your participation, right? And then life just happens. As with training, I do my best when I show up to the gym. I do my best to make the effort that I need to do. But when it comes to progressing, I just don't give a shit, man. Like you mentioned, if it happens in this session, it happens. I celebrate it. Of course, I cherish it, but it doesn't take away from my daily practice. It's doing without doing.
it. Yeah,
When I'm doing a set, it's let the reps come by. I'm just gonna receive the reps, and whatever
right,
comes, comes. And that's kind of the concept of Wu Wei, and actually not giving a shit, but not to the point of not actually giving a
right,
shit, because
right.
you're still doing the work, you're still doing it, but you're not stressing about what it's beyond your control. And man, the way you mentioned also more in the day to day, not just in training, I think it's quite similar. And honestly, it's for me thinking this way, it's been game changing in the sense that I'm not stressed out about my training like I used to be. I'm not stressed out in the day to day the way I used to be of making progress, because bodybuilders, we get this mentality to progressing on everything. We need more, more, more. In a way, yes, but in a way, you're also accepting what is right now as it's it's just the way it is, and that's perfectly fine with me. While I strive to build on top of that, you
No,
know?
that's good. And I think what that kind of when I hear that, what helped me unravel is like, okay, so I think a problem that you have, obviously, and I have, is that we're somewhat gifted uh, as being intellectuals, but I feel like being an intellectual has also been the biggest problem of my life at the same time too, right? Sometimes I look at a dog, it's just and it's just fucking breathing, living life,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that looks so good. It just looks so good, if I could just shut up for a little bit, if I could just shut up. And so I think the problem with sort of I'm reading this book right now, and you'd like it. It's called The Intellectual Life by A.G. Sertalange, and he was one of those Dominican friars, like those guys, those monks used to like shave their heads and like wear cloaks and stuff like that. Like I didn't grow up Catholic, so I don't know anything about the Catholic Church, So I'm now finding out that there's like a whole Catholic body of knowledge curriculum, I guess you can call it. I don't know what you would call it. But anyways, these guys just have halls of work done by these like genius Christians through the centuries. These friars through the centuries. The most popular would probably be I forgot what it's called, but he has these 12 principles for. I forgot the guy. I forgot his name. But anyways, I don't want to take it on. So anyways, he writes in this book talking about how to live an intellectual life, and this guy has taken up a life of working for the church, studying for the church, and he doesn't have an outside life. He lives in the church, so he talks about the intellectual life, and he goes through all these rules and basically all these things that he has. And one of the things that he talks about that really struck out to me, he says one of the most important things about living an intellectual life is creating a zone of silence within. right? Not only having a quiet room to study, quiet environments to study, but emptying the mind, emptying the work. The way he basically describes it is that, like, when an intellectual gets an idea, you get a moment of ecstasy. And in that moment of ecstasy, wow, a great idea. And you get sort of close to God in that moment, he says, close in line with the truth. He said, but after that moment of ecstasy comes all the secondary stuff, research, work, the technique of the work, writing styles, right? All these rules. And in that second phase is when your brain starts to go whoa, whoa, crazy, right? You start to doubt yourself. You start to do all, right? You start to just go, it says basically you have to create this zone of silence. And so what I like about Christians is that they have, I've just never seen a more audacious philosophy than Christianity. And that's what I like about it, right? It's so audacious. It's incredibly, they say the most audacious things. And it's like unbelievable that you could say something like that. But it's like, it's like a bodybuilder, right? It's audacious to think that you're going to get your body fat down to, but there's
Yeah.
awesomeness in that. You be watching me. You be fucking watching me, And that's what I like about it. So anyways, he says in creating the zone of silence for yourself, if you get a calling, right? If you get a calling for something, for intellectual work, your life's purpose is to sort of answer that calling. And the goal is to not aim too high, right? Not overshoot your talent, right? And then now you're, anxiety and overworked, but not to undershoot. And the goal is to be right in line and to produce and output the work that you're supposed to have. But this won't come if you continue to chatter yourself up, right? You can call this monkey mind, they call it in Buddhism
Yeah.
too, right? And so it's going back to this concept of, let's say you were like in a silent mode. Let's say you turned your brain off. It's like that. I don't know if you've seen that TV show Severance. It's an Apple
No,
TV. So
no, no, no.
so imagine if you were on this call right now, right, and then for the rest of the day, let's say you turned your brain off until 8 p.m. Your consciousness. What do you think you would do? I think you would still do the exact same thing, whether you could consciously observe it or not, right? And so I think the whole concept of this woo, this whole concept of creating a zone of silence, and many people have attacked this from many angles, right? But there's one truth in the center, and I think that they're all trying to get to. It's, you got to trust that your brain is not more intelligent than Napoleon Hill calls the term the infinite intelligence, right? Christians call the term God. Basically, a horse can run beautifully without any conscious thought. Michael Jordan can shoot beautifully without any conscious thought. We can all do things when we're in flow state, basically, what they call it right now in the modern term. We can all activate that if we get to the zone of silence and then get in there. But the problem with the intellectual is that they value intellect too much, right? And that's the problem, is that sometimes I can see myself having to do something, and then my intellect gets in the way, and it says, organize and do this and plan and think, and what about this thing? I want to make sure I have this. And it gets in the way of the art of living, so to speak. If living is an art, and if I was an artist in life, you can't overthink it. You can't overplan it. And so as I've gotten older, I've really come to value this sort of woo philosophy. And the only way I'm going to execute it is if I give up on my dear thoughts. I remember my first thought. I remember it clearly. I remember my first existential thought. I was like 5 years old. I'll never forget this. I was like 4, probably 4 or very younger. I had to be three or four. I was sitting on the toilet waiting for my parents to come. I was a kid. And I remember there was these vanity light bulbs in the bathroom. And I closed my eyes. I squinted my eyes like this, like I can barely see a slit. And then with my mouth, I made like a buzzing sound, like zzz. And I remember thinking, oh, that must be what bees see the reality at. All right, I'm a kid. And so anyways, I've been thinking since that day. I've been thinking, and when you really look at the percentage of thoughts that you've had, when do they really, how much have ever really helped you? Like, none. I mean, maybe like if I have to ask you, like, hey, what's 8 times 8? Think it, and then that will work. But generally, thinking is not helpful. Thinking is just like this tape reel of just shit that just runs all day. You go to sleep, and then it starts to create these movie images. It's just constantly thinking. It's not really doing anything, right? Real intellect is when you actually have to say, "Oh, what's this?" and you actually think it and you go in your memory. I find that 99% of my thinking is useless. And more of what I've been trying to do lately is just do it randomly, just see what comes out. I mean, my hand has all the intelligence it needs, right? Like if my body needs something, it'll call it. Like sometimes I'll be doing an exercise and then I'll have a flashback to something I heard Eric Helms say, and I'll be, oh yeah, 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 right? It'll call for it when it needs it. It'll use that thing when it needs it. I don't need to be thinking all the time. So I think something that intellectuals have, the Soda Silence, is we are in love with our thoughts. We're smart. They sound good, right? And we just love the sound of them going off. So I think trying to shut that thinking capacity down is hard for the intellectual. And I think what's hardest for the intellectual, a lot of people who are based in science lifting, is all the best bodybuilders are fucking stupid. They're so dumb. They're like not intellectuals at all. They're not scientists at all. But somehow they're still more intelligent as bodybuilders than someone who has a PhD. It's the most backwards thing I've ever seen. One thing that I learned from Lane Norton in the years that I spent for him, during all the years I was with him, and he was mentoring me, though Lane Norton is one of the brightest stars I've ever been around, right? A crazy memory, crazy capacity to read something one time and memorize it. He is the dumbest motherfucker on the training floor that you will ever meet, right? Like, when it's time to get in the arena, it is not time for your intellectual capacity. It's not time for your thinking. There has to be a severance between the two, right? You can't, you got to go into I'm half monkey, half God, right? I have this spirit of intellectual capacity, but I'm also just a dog at the same time. And I can't be afraid that there's plenty of intelligence in the monkey. There's plenty of intelligence in the ape. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with quieting my mind and being that. So I feel like a lot of the bodybuilding philosophy that I've learned is it's okay to be a human being. Not everything needs to be thought or has some higher intellectual thought derived from it. And I don't blame thought. Well, thought lives in the world of the brain, and the brain likes to think the brain is most important. It'd be like my kidneys saying they're the most important thing. They're important, sure, but there are more important things than kidneys. Just like there's more important things than thoughts. There's a lot of shit going on out here. So I think it's hard for the intellectual to sort of reduce the thought and silence the brain up a little bit, because like you value those thoughts, and then you realize like, oh man, if my brain had like a competing something, like another competing intellect, you would say you're not as important as you think. But it's the only one that runs the show, and it's a little fucked up, I think, from time to time.
And I think you and I have a lot in common. I've been identified with many things that you said of being an intellectual, of constantly thinking, and you made me remember something that I didn't have present in the last couple of months, years perhaps, is that I actually failed high school. And when I failed high school, I went to a couple of days with some monks, believe it or not. I spent days and nights there meditating, praying. I'm not a religious person. I wasn't a religious person back in the day. I was like maybe 15, 16 years old. But anyway, I went with these monks that lived near my city. And silence is one thing that I appreciated since then to this
Bro.
day. And in the training floor, like you mentioned, let's say when you're next to the bar, you're gonna go do a deadlift. I think it's better to learn how to keep quiet, how to let the universal intelligence take over. And that's something that I actually paradoxically tell myself, my body knows how to do this. I don't need to interfere. If it happens that I leave the bar and I'm not strong enough, it's okay. I don't need to interfere. If it happens that I actually complete the lift, it's okay. My body knows how to do it. And that's been really relaxing, liberating too, in terms of, the constant chattering in your mind about technique, about volume, about range of motion, about all these things that I love. I love to talk about those things, but not to have them present when I have the bar in my hands. So I think that's a way to actually incorporate all these lessons in life to the gym floor and actually keep quiet a little bit because I feel you, man. All my life it's been like that, like constantly chattering, constantly thinking about this stuff and loving this stuff, loving thinking about it. But also to a certain degree, it gets just obnoxious. It gets just so loud that you go, I need to quiet, I need to learn how to quiet my mind. By the way, do you have any practical guidelines, let's say, let's call it that, for people in that sense, that how to quiet and actually just execute and let your body take over in the gym?
Yes. Okay. So I learned. So I think Christians explain this well. So I'll just use the Christian way to explain. I'm not saying Christianity is the only one. Uh, I, I think what I like about Christians is that they remind me of like West Side Barbell, right? They use these crazy techniques that once you'd see them and you'd be like, "There's no way that technique's gonna work," right? But I think the biggest thing that Christians use that really has revolutionized things for me is the power of belief, right? You see this in scientific studies all the time, right? If you can get a person to believe in the placebo works, right? And I think that's the biggest conundrum to me about Christianity is like, is it placebo or is it? It doesn't fucking matter, right? What does matter is that in my brain, the same way that I have a mechanism of fear, I have a mechanism of belief, right? And I find that in this rational world we live in, we're always trying to lean on rationality in a sense. But belief is a tool that I believe is growing dust in a lot of people's brains, right? So earlier when I was saying kind of what I'm doing here, it's just being brave and getting my courage up. It's like a little kid, right? It's like, how can a little kid see all these adults walking if they're a baby and say, I'm gonna walk too. You know, this kid has no idea how to walk. And then that's the thing, right? Your parents didn't fucking teach you how to walk. They just maybe held you up, but they didn't teach you. You've taught yourself how to walk, right? Because you believed you could do it. I don't know, right? You didn't even have to have a conscious belief as a kid. You believed you could do it. And so I think the biggest separator is belief. I think that's one thing that's always been very big for me, right? Is my ability to say, I don't know, I just think I'm better than I did. I think I can make it. I just believe I can, right? And it just kind of goes on a whim. And the thing about belief, I think that's powerful, is that like I think a lot of people are afraid to believe because they're afraid to be wrong, right? And I think if I had to say it, believe in those crazy audacious things that no one can prove wrong. You know what I mean? Like you can't. There's certain things that I learned, at least from Christian practice, that you can't prove wrong, right? Like if you believe that I'm gonna be Mr. Olympia one day, if you believe that to your dying day, what does it matter? That belief kept you running on a gasoline that was. It doesn't matter if you did it or not. It doesn't matter. You had the belief, and that belief kept you going towards north, right? So for me, it's less about will I manifest this? Will I get this? Because you'll get it, you'll manifest it, and like you said, the bodybuilding won't keep you charged anymore, right? The thing that I think does keep you charged is the power of believing in something, right? The same way that you can have the power of worrying, or you can have the power of doubt. All of our brain capacities have a power. And belief is something that we have, Jesus would call it little faith. We have such a little bit of it, right? We don't believe anymore. It's like we're in a time of just everything's got to be rational, and this is what the numbers say, and things like that. Like obviously, if you believe that you can lift, deadlift 1,000 pounds, you'd be okay. Well, you better believe that you got to do the world record training for it, and you have to have world record structure for it, right? But let's say you believe that and you get to it, and I think a lot of people believe a little, and when it doesn't happen for them, they just crumble, they just fall apart, right? Their whole psyche sort of, an identity sort of crumbles. But that's the thing. How many times have you been heartbroken? You believe that, oh yeah, this girl, I like this girl, and then that belief drops, right? It's almost like we're afraid to continue to believe. What's that Journey song? Don't stop
Don't stop
believing.
believing, man. 80s, yeah, for sure,
Dude,
man.
seriously. And so this is the thing that I've been preaching to kids. It's like if you think you can do that shit, go for it. If you're wrong, believe in something new. Just don't stop believing. It's like we're all too good for believing in something anymore, right? And so this is what I learned from Christian practice. I've never heard anyone say believe in God the Father. It's fucking crazy, right? It's like it's the most audacious thing you can believe in. And so for me, I've received a lot from this, right? If you can set your brain, and this is what I like about the Christian practice, if you can set your brain to believe in the highest human thought possible, the supreme meaning, let's call it, you can believe in fucking anything. you're invincible. You're not afraid of anything. You believe that you're going to keep charging forward. So for me to quiet my mind, you go up there and you be like, I know I'm going to take this. I believe that. I believe that. I've always believed. And if I don't get this, I believe there's something else for me. It's sort of the belief that keeps you going in the method, right? Like I've come back to this bodybuilding journey. I've been a year and a half in. Dude, I'm not as young as I was. I got blah blah blah. My injuries. I got all types of crazy shit. I just think I'm still better than them. I don't know. I can't shake. I can't shake it. I still believe I have my best bodybuilding ahead of me. And let's say that that's just not true. Well, then let me find out on my own, right? And what does it hurt me to believe? You can worry all day. You can have doubt all day. You can have fear all day, right? You can have rationale all day. But believing big, it's like we don't do that anymore. And I think Christianity really brought that back for me. Is believe big, get some big balls, really believe that you can do this. And I think for a lot of people, instead of believing, they don't believe, and so they could conjure up this fake belief, and that's the big bodybuilding ego, the nasty stuff that we see a lot, right? It's this big identity, it's this big projection, right? It's like they're trying to go opposite. And so with belief, to get true belief, here's what I've learned, at least from Christian practice, that I think you can take over this. How do I say it? I think Christian practice has made clear what I was doing in bodybuilding, and it's given me names and titles for these things. Uh, Let the method break you. If you find that this method can get you to the point where you get so desperate and you cry and you'll do anything and you'll break, let it crumble you, let it make you a new person, let the method shape you, let it mold you, let it do the stuff to you. Don't be so rigid. Let it make you flexible. That's what I think the power of belief does. It breaks down all these barriers, and if you keep believing, it'll get you there, right? The only time the power of belief doesn't work is if you believe in something not true. Truth can never be cracked or faltered, right? It can never be. So that's been the biggest thing for me is believe big, dude. Don't stop. Just don't stop. Just believe. Like there's like if people don't believe in anything, people are like a bodybuilding atheist. It's crazy. Like you gotta believe, bro. You gotta believe, man.
Yeah.
And so that's my big thing, man. It's I believe I can, and you gotta work on belief, just like you gotta work on anything else. Like we're talking about therapy, you gotta work that thing up.
And that's beautiful. You remind me of a Nas song. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called "I Can." I know I can if I work hard at it. If you haven't heard it, man, it's
And
it's spot on. It's spot on, and it has children chorus and stuff, and I think it's really inspiring. And man, I gotta tell you, this has been one of my favorite live streams because it hits more on a on a personal level and something that it's hard to talk about with everyday people. Not because they're not capable of anything like that, because perhaps for some people it's not something that they have actually thought about
for
before, or
sure.
it's a little harsh to get into the sort of conversations on the day-to-day basis. So my man Ryan, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'll be uploading this live stream to YouTube so people can watch it, so
Awesome.
I can watch it again because there's a lot of views that you dropped there, man. And anytime you wanna chat, I'm more than happy to. It's been a really beautiful
Thank
conversation, man.
you. I appreciate it. You don't know, man. It might be one time, might be a hundred times, you never know. So I take everyone and I appreciate it. So thank you for reaching out. Let me get on here with you, man.
Thanks to you, and thanks to you for taking the time, man. I do hope you have a great rest of the day, and hopefully get to
We'll
chat to you soon.
talk soon. Just reach out.
Take care, my man.